Hi, welcome to my podcast, Técnicamente. I am Jose. This is usually done in Spanish, but I decided to do this in English because I believe that the information that I'm going to be sharing today is very important for a lot of the people in the U.S. mainland to fully grasp in order to effect change. Whether that's one way or another, it doesn't really matter. It is important for you to really fully grasp what's going on here with the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg yesterday. What's going to happen next, and what does this mean for us as a country, because this is huge, and I will explain that to you in a second. Now, this podcast is dedicated to the facts, not the opinions. So I usually limit my opinions to just a very, very, how would I say? I will express to you when my opinions are literally my opinions and not the facts, so that you can take, you can make your own decisions, and you can feel free to fact check me on all this. All this information is coming out of the source, the legitimate sources like the Supreme Court justices, or the Supreme Court's webpage, the White House webpage, Associated Press, different interviews that have been given over the years by the justice and by other people that know the justice. And so the idea here is that you go out with information, that you are not just spreading the superlative of crap out there. And this is not a liberal agenda. This is not a conservative agenda. We don't even vote in the United States, as I live in Puerto Rico. So it really doesn't matter to me whether liberals or conservatives win. This is all about the facts. So if you find that this is leaning one way or another, I would invite you to check yourself, because you're probably peddling some sort of agenda yourself. So I will go right into the meat of this, and we're gonna end up talking about why this is important to you. So it is important for us to know our history and what's going on in our background in order to make an informed decision. So I always start from the very beginning, which is who is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So Associated Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a associate judge, or was an associate judge at the Supreme Court of the United States. She was appointed in 1993 by then President Bill Clinton. She was taken out of the Court of Appeals for the Circuit of DC, which is where a lot of the justices are basically sourced from for the Supreme Court of the United States, because of their experience with a lot of political issues and a lot of things that have to do with Washington, D.C. She was actually favorably voted, or confirmed actually, 93 to 3 votes in favor in the United States Senate. So she wasn't a very polarizing figure. She was the second woman at the time. She was the second woman named Supreme Court Justice. And she was a very avid defender of women's rights and other civil liberties, including LGBTQ rights, which technically makes her a part of what is called the liberal wing of the court. But she was originally thought to be a moderate, which is the reason why she was so overwhelmingly confirmed. Her notoriety has earned her the moniker of the notorious RBG, which many of you probably have already heard, and that's how she was generally referred to. And it was basically the name that was used in a lot of the documentaries that are out there today that you can potentially watch about her. And she's very much considered a pop culture icon. Now, she was diagnosed with colon cancer back in 1999, and she was treated successfully for it. But over the years, she's had a lot of recurring bouts with cancer. So after that, she was in remission. Then she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which is a very tough kind of cancer, which is what essentially ended the life of Steve Jobs. back in the day, and this was in 2009, and she had surgery for it, and she actually beat it. Then after that, she was hospitalized after a fall that she had in her office at the Supreme Court, and during that time when she was being treated for her fall and for her broken ribs, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. So this is back in 2009. That was treated. She had it surgically removed, and after a while, she was also treated again or she got a recurrence of pancreatic cancer, which she had on and off again, but ultimately ended her life now on September 18 of 2020. She had a very public clash with current President Donald Trump, and she didn't really like a lot of his policies and the way he conducted himself. But this is breaking basically with the traditions of the Supreme Court justices, where they usually do not get involved in politics because they're not supposed to be political figures. So she quickly apologized for this, but in essence, everybody knew that she wasn't really much of a big Donald Trump fan. So she died at the age of 87, which is basically leaving a vacancy within the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, the main question here is going to be like, so, okay, cool, so what does this mean? And in order for me to explain that, you need to understand the process of how a justice is basically nominated and goes through confirmation, because a lot of this is going to play out in the next couple of days, maybe, for sure, months. So what is a Supreme Court justice, or where does this come from, and how is this, what is the process, and how are they selected, etc. So Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution basically vests the power of the court system or the judiciary system in the United States in the U.S. Supreme Court, as part of the three branches of government that have co-equal powers. So it basically stems from the Constitution of the United States, where the power of the Supreme Court and its justices comes from. Now, it is currently composed, or was currently composed, of 8 associate justices and 1 chief justice. And since this has been since 1869, since the Constitution does not provide for a specific number of justices that have to serve in the Supreme Court, and as little as 6 Supreme Court justices have been serving at one point during the life of the Supreme Court in the United States. So Article 2, Section 2 vests the power of nominating a justice to the Supreme Court on the President of the United States with the consent of the Senate. So they are basically the ones that confirm the nominee from the President. So President selects and the Senate confirms. So once they are confirmed, they hold office for life, or until they are either they retire or they are removed. So justices in the Supreme Court can be removed. They are usually removed by misconduct, and it goes to an impeachment trial that is tried by the Congress of the United States. But this hasn't really happened since 1805, and it didn't really end in a conviction. So it's only been done once in the whole lifespan of the United States, basically, since it was constituted with the Constitution of the United States. So a nominee will face the U.S. Senate, and they will usually go through what is called a confirmation hearing, where they will be grilled about a whole number of things, but are usually very much tailored to how they would potentially vote, because even though they're not supposed to be political figures, the ones that are actually confirming them are political figures. So they're looking to get a justice that would potentially further their views, whether conservative or liberal. Upon achieving a simple majority, which is of the Senate, which is 51 votes. And mind you, this means in the United States Senate, there's 100 senators because there's 2 senators for every state, which is why Puerto Rico doesn't have a vote in this in the Senate currently. So once they have that majority vote, 51 being the majority vote or whatever is close to that, then the nominee becomes an associate justice, and is sworn in. So what does this mean, right? Because that's just the process. So that means that now President Trump is legally within his rights to nominate a justice immediately. There isn't a cooling period. There isn't necessarily like a specific time frame for them to do that. He could basically come out tomorrow and say, this is the person that I'm picking, I'm formally nominating them, and then it has to go to a Senate confirmation hearing. But this confirmation hearing is actually held by the Senate, which means that whoever's controlling the Senate gets to decide if there's a hearing or not. Currently, the Senate is controlled by Republicans. They have the majority there with 54 votes. Mitch McConnell is the majority leader. And usually because of this, they are the ones that are responsible for saying when we're going to meet and bring this to a vote. But it usually also goes first through a judiciary committee, which is currently presided by Senator Lindsey Graham, which these 2 points are very important for what I'm going to tell you next. 1 hour after the announcement of Justice Ginsburg's death, Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, announced that upon the death, any nominee that Trump presents is going to get a vote. He's not saying they're going to get confirmed, and he's not saying when, but he is stating that they are going to, that person nominated is going to get a vote from the Senate. Now, this is a very similar scenario to something that happened in 2016, where in the death of Associate Justice Antonin Scalia died, which was considered to be a conservative within the Supreme Court. He died during the presidency of Obama. Now, this happened in February of 2016. Right then and there, at that point, there was a lot of controversy because back in the day as well, the Senate was controlled by Republicans, and Senate Majority Leader in that moment was also Mitch McConnell, and he blocked President Obama's appointment because, and this is basically a quote, the people of the United States needed to weigh in on the selection, which basically meant that because it was an election year, they weren't going to really consider anyone. This was Obama's second term, and so he was going to be going out of office. The question was whether the president that was going to hold office next was either Democrat or a Republican, because that was when Hillary and Trump went face to face. So, the issue at hand is that because he blocked that nomination back then, based on an election year where people needed to see what happened with the elections to maybe determine who was going to get selected to the Supreme Court. There is an obvious contradiction right now. Now, McConnell immediately stated after the death of Justice Ginsburg that the Republicans have a right to know, and this is a statement that he put out there, people, so I'm not making this up, have a right to vote on a nomination that has been brought forward, excuse me, has been brought forward by the President of the United States. Now, this is in clear contrast with Obama's pick for a justice, which was Merrick Garland back in 2016. Trump has already previously, before RBG's death, had floated a couple of names of who he thought should serve, given that everybody knew that Justice Ginsburg was in a very delicate state of health, and because regardless she was going to have to retire at some point anyway. So because this was a political matter, he was floating names for the purpose of building up confidence within his Republican base on conservative judges. And one of the names that he floated out there was actually Senator Ted Cruz, which was one of his biggest rivals in 2016 as a contender for the presidency of the United States. And they insulted themselves and they did all these different things, but now he is one of the potential names that is floated out there, even though Trump himself in his rallies has determined that he really believes that Ted Cruz should be the person nominated, which he has the power to do. But Ted Cruz has already said that he's not interested, but anything can change at any moment, because we know that what people say isn't necessarily binding, as we've clearly seen over the years. Now, it is also stated, and this is just what has been said. This is not something that we've heard from Justice Ginsburg, but a niece of Justice Ginsburg did announce yesterday that at her death, or during the time of her death, not necessarily simultaneously, RBG had mentioned that she didn't want to be replaced until a new president was elected. Now, this could mean literally a new president, somebody other than Donald Trump, or it could also mean a new president as in after the elections. Whatever the reason, her particular opinion was that she didn't want to be used or as a political piece, I guess, in discord in the next couple of months leading to the elections and right after that as well. So this is kind of the full background of what's going on. These are all facts. I'm not making this up. Feel free to fact check me. The situation, which is also facts, but I am going to talk a little bit more about my opinions laced in there as well, and I will make very clear what are my opinions and what is a fact. I want to show you guys what specifically is going to happen in the next couple of months. So why does this matter? Well, first of all, it is very clear that the hypocrisy that's going on here, and I say this, I'm also not making this up. I mean, hypocrisy, the term hypocrisy is the practice of claiming to have moral standards or belief to which one's own behavior does not conform, or it's used as a pretense. This is the definition of hypocrisy. Now, if McConnell is saying one thing for a nominee from a Democratic president and is saying something completely different, and mind you, I understand that some people are going to argue that these are different scenarios, these are different terms. Trump is in his first term. Obama was in his second term, and he had to go out because the Constitution does not allow a president to stay longer than 2 terms. Then some people can say, well, there was going to be a shift in president anyway, so that's what justifies the difference. However, what was stated back in the day wasn't really about a term limit. It was really more about the fact that it was an election year, and this is basically stated everywhere, and it is said because at the time McConnell didn't want to be seen as just setting a precedent on second terms. I'm sure what he potentially, and this is an opinion, I'm sure that what he was potentially thinking is, I'm going to say this because regardless of it's a one-year president or a two-term president, if they're in an election year, there's a potential of switch, so I'm just going to say that this is fair game and this is the new norm. This is the new policy for the United States. And Senator Lindsey Graham, who now presides the Judicial Committee within the Senate, has basically stated very clearly that this wasn't a 4-year versus 8-year thing. For him, this is, and he's recorded saying this in different conversations, for him, this is more about if it's an election year, you don't get a vote, or you don't, even if you get a nomination, you won't get a justice voted or for confirmation. So right now, the situation is that Trump will evaluate someone and will probably be making a nomination, whether before or after the elections, but you can bet it's going to be before January of 2021. And this is going to go to potentially a vote at some point where Republicans currently do have 54 votes available for them to vote in someone. However, the chances of this actually going through are potentially very limited because there is a lot of concern on how this looks politically for a lot of the Republicans that campaigned on this or said stuff regarding this back into 2016. There's a lot of more. There's also a couple of a couple of moderate Republicans such as Mitt Romney or Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, who are actually considered more of moderate Republicans, and they understand the optics of this. So if you take these three people and either they don't vote or they vote no for a hearing, then you automatically lose 3. That still gives you one potential vote that's in favor of whatever nominee is pointed out. But that only means that nobody else decides to wipe their hands clean of this situation because of the optics going into an election year. Now, there's also the situation with the seat from Arizona that was vacated by Senator Sinema, who basically left office, and the appointee after that also left office, and so there's a special election happening now in November for that seat, which is said to be occupied by Martha McSally, which is a Republican. But in this special election, if she doesn't win, then that's one less vote, which means then you would potentially have 50 votes to 1 if this were to go into a vote after the elections in what is called the lame duck session, and it's called lame duck because a lot of the times if there's a switch, then that president doesn't really have a lot of power, so it's called lame duck. Go look it up. But anyway, so there's a potential situation with votes. Regardless of that, if a nomination is made and confirmed by the Senate, then there is a possibility, there's a couple of possibilities. And this is the point where you need to listen, because the first part is very much possible to happen. If Donald Trump, which my opinion is he will nominate someone very soon, if he nominates someone and the Senate votes to confirm or votes to go through the process of confirmation, the new justice would preside over any case that comes up from the election year. Which means that whoever is appointed now, Trump appoints, then if there's litigation based on the elections, that person's going to have a vote on whatever happens, and it's potentially going to be a deciding vote. Which means that obviously, because of the political nature of all this, our conservative Republican will probably be nominated. Probably, doesn't mean it will, but probably be nominated. And another conservative would be added to the current system. Now, I did not mention this before, but the composition of the current the current Supreme Court was actually pretty even. You had 4 justices that were pretty much liberals, considered to be liberals. You had 4 Republicans, which are very much conservative, 2 of which were already voted in by Donald Trump, and 1 kind of moderate justice who basically swings every now and then, which was thought to be Justice Kennedy back in the day, but now is technically Justice Roberts. So anyways, if this person is nominated and voted in, what happens is they would potentially be voting on anything that happens based off of the elections. If a Democrat wins the Senate, then, and obviously this person wasn't, how would I say, if they were nominated and it passes, if they were nominated and it passes through a Republican Senate, then if Democrats win in the 2020 elections, then there is a very big possibility that they are going to look for an increased number of justices in the coming years so that they can balance out the Senate. Remember, there isn't a specific amount of of justices that are supposed to be in the Supreme Court, so they can change that if they wanted to, and they would potentially have the votes for it. Now, if Trump wins and the Senate is controlled by the Republicans, then more cases will probably go in front of the Supreme Court, because they're going to try to move forward with Republican-held agendas, because they know they would potentially have votes to overturn jurisprudence that was usually blocked either by a very minimal margin, whether 5-4, or whether there was some sort of stalemate. But a lot of stuff will be going in front of the courts to be overturned, and this basically means stuff like Roe v. Wade, stuff like affirmative action, LGBTQ rights, any caps that are made on the money that can be given to campaigns for political reasons. So all these things are basically in jeopardy if a nominee by a Trump is confirmed by a Republican Senate now or in the future. And if this is important to you, whether for or against, then you would have to make your voices heard. But what is definitely important to realize is that the death of a justice is not just some person randomly in a court making decisions that do not affect you. They completely affect you. They completely affect us here in Puerto Rico as well. Because if there were some sort of, of contention based on whether, which is probably something that would potentially be happening very soon, whether we as American citizens have rights to certain benefits in the United States, like the supplemental part of Medicare, for instance, then there would be a conservative wing, or an overwhelmingly conservative wing, that would potentially be striking down any rights that Puerto Ricans might potentially have to that type of access. Now, if you're for or against it, that's why you would need to make a decision and need to speak to your senators. And this is the reason why I coming right to a conclusion. This is the reason why I'm telling you this, because this is a very important moment in history, and the people in the United States mainland and the states of Hawaii and Alaska, you guys have the rights to vote. You guys have the right to call your senators and request either to vote for or against any nominee that President Trump might be bringing up for a confirmation at the Senate, and that Mitch McConnell is going to potentially hear, because he already said that he would. So I am urging you to make your voices heard. Make your voices heard for the people of Puerto Rico that cannot make their voices heard, especially you guys in the diaspora in the United States. Make your voices heard. Talk to your senators and push them one way or the other, because it depends on you whether this is going to go through or not. If anything that we have said here, like I said, sounds like some liberal or conservative agenda, I feel sorry for the fact that you cannot discern from facts from fiction. But I urge you to share this with other people. I urge you to share this if you find it obviously important and interesting. I share it, give thumbs up, and never forget the lesson that you guys learned from us, the Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico in the summer of 2019, where we ousted a governor. So you guys can make an effective change, whether for or against, in this situation, if you really so choose to do so. So thank you so much for joining me for this special edition of Técnicamente. I will continue to do these in Spanish, so if you're a Spanish speaker and you really care about this content, subscribe, follow us on Facebook and on YouTube, and just continue to stay tuned and look for new episodes. See ya.